So we're going to hear, we are recording. Give me 1 second. Let me to drink a sip of this and we will get started.
I'll join you, sir.
I don't know. I really love the parts of,
too?
what do you got, Brian?
Of course I'm drinking. I'm drinking a hot toddy.
Oh,
What?
some whiskey in there. Is that what's in it?
There's some whiskey and tea. Hell yeah.
Whiskey and tea. That's a good one when you're sick. That's the order. I think that's what they're meant for.
Yeah, maybe.
Kevin's not a big tea drinker, but
I drink tea.
Okay. Hot whiskey. What's that?
Setup.
Combat base.
It's a refrigerator.
Wow. What's in there?
That thing is badass.
You got anything you can pop out?
So I got that. You see it?
Yeah, talk. So it's, oh, you know what? I bet if I click it, I wonder if it'll bring you up as the main video. No, what? Yeah, right now it shows Bryan. I don't know how to do that. I need to figure out how to change the people live.
This is bourbon that's made here in Rockville, Maryland.
We're seeing it.
Yeah, 1812. I got that a couple weekends ago. I had to go somewhere with my wife, and then I got an apple cinnamon one.
Oh,
This is the stuff I want you guys to try right here. This right here. This tastes good with everything. It tastes like, if you like butterscotch, it tastes, my wife likes it, and she doesn't drink a lot. Yep. Bubba's
Okay.
Secret Stills.
Mm.
And then I just got a couple small Coronas in here, some Coronas, and this is my wife's wine and stuff.
Yeah. We could just do a whiskey drinking podcast. I think we would
totally
we would be well equipped to do a whiskey drinking podcast. No doubt. So,
I'm gonna drink a little of this.
what do you got? Oh, you're
I'm
gonna
drink a little of this.
the Bubba's.
There we go.
I had just a little bit of larceny before this. Larceny's not the nicest whiskey, but it goes down easy and it's a little strong. I like that. I like high percentage whiskey. Brian, what's your favorite whiskey?
I'm gonna probably go with the Woodford Reserve right now. That's been treating me well.
Nice.
Either Woodford Reserve or there's Jefferson small batch stuff.
Yeah.
Both of them are good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. We got to do a whiskey podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And then we just all taste our own every 10 minutes on the minute, we gotta do another shot or something.
Or just basically like we can meet up, have a couple different ones, put them into different bottles, send everybody home with it, and boom.
Yes. Yeah, some for the road.
Yeah, man. Send everybody home. We'll sit down, take shots, and basically be like, all right, let's take this one now. Let's go. What do we got?
Yeah.
Are we recording this right now?
We are recording right now. But this is quality right here. I actually so before I introduce, I'll say I love the parts of a podcast that are like the behind the scenes sort of stuff, or like the not as official parts of recording. Like for instance, like the phone just vibrated. I like that kind of stuff in a podcast. Sometimes when people over edit and they cut out every little thing, I like the lulls. Like in the last one, there was a pee break, and I really like that sort of stuff.
I thought that was the best part of the podcast.
Yeah.
I was laughing my ass off. I was listening to it driving home last night. Yo, Sean Doherty is fucking crazy as shit. I love that podcast.
He's nuts, dude. I love it.
That guy is so awesome. I wish you guys would have went more into like freaking Lions Den, man. I really wanted to hear, like, he spent time in there and like, he's got stories.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. Well, I mean, his main takeaway, something he didn't touch on in this last podcast, and I'm not saying this is Lions Den specific, so don't take this the wrong way, people, but he was like, look, you people don't understand. You'll demonize or criminalize somebody like Lloyd, which of course makes sense, but you don't understand how many of your idols are like rapists and terrible people. And he just goes in about like a lot of these people are not who you think they are. Now, he didn't say that Lions Den specific, but when he's on Grappling Central, he's like, a lot of your heroes, they've raped women, dude. They're not all good people. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to try and adjust my camera here to get tilted down. Oh, there we go. I've got Kevin Baughman and Bryan Wunder. We are the three main savages at the gym. Savages with a 5 because we train at 5 in the morning. I want to say, Sean Edwards, you're wearing the State Line Canine thing. I think it's unfair to not mention that Sean is actually an original, even though he hasn't been able to like make it as frequently. He is an original savage. He's got to be on this podcast. It has to happen.
Absolutely.
But it just made sense that us three do one to kind of like break the ice there. And it worked out. I was looking for a guest today because this weekend my mom's coming to town, and I hit up you guys, and it worked out. It worked out beautifully. So we train at 5 a.m. This started, I was thinking about it. We've hit over the 1 year mark of regular. We probably started 3 days a week sometime around a year ago.
It's probably pretty close.
So off the bat, something I do want to get into a little bit of history, but before we do that, I would love to just reflect on what this 5 a.m. training. I was thinking about it today. Like, I'll kind of start off. I know for a fact I am a more disciplined, more focused, almost like a monk, dude. Like, I'm sacrificing things I never thought I would have sacrificed for jujitsu. Like I haven't been going out on as many like meaningless dates or stringing out things with girls that aren't as impactful and important to me because of how much I love getting up early and going to the gym. I definitely consider certain decisions for my health more, your sleep, your recovery, and it just makes me appreciate my training more. I maximize my time more and more. Is there anything you notice reflecting this past year, other than just, it's probably the most we've ever trained jujitsu? Bryan, start off here.
Honestly, really, I think to me, it was just working with the time that you got, and being in retail and being in the industry that I'm in. Like, nights don't always work for me because I get called in to stay late or do something. And honestly, the only way to really like make that a straight commitment, one way to do things was to start early. I mean, get at 5 a.m. That means that, to your point, instead of training 1 or 2 days a week at jiu-jitsu, I can consistently get a good 4 or 5 days a week of training in, and still get to work on time, not piss my wife off, because to your point with the dating scene and things like that, going in at night and everything like that, my wife at points was like, man, I never see you because you're either at work or you're at the gym. And it's kind of helped me to balance out my life a whole lot more in terms of being able to do jujitsu, what I love, being able to bust my ass at work, because I think the three of us, we all have physical ass jobs, and to balance in family life, to make sure that like I got all three going at once. Sleep, that'll come in time, but whatever. That's to me, the training aspect has been great because of that. So that's why I really like that early morning. I hate it when it's happening, but I love it when we're going for it.
Amen. Kevin?
So I think I've always been a pretty disciplined person, but when we started doing this, I was like, I have to be extra disciplined. So I get my stuff. I already have my stuff together for tomorrow and that kind of thing. I've always woke up early to work out and things, but it's a lot different coming down here to my garage and driving across town to the gym. You know what I mean? The other thing I like about it is we kind of get in and get out. That's another good thing. And just like Bryan said, I can be on call at night sometimes, so I would miss training those nights. Plus, I have a daughter who's 8, so when she has a concert or something, I won't be able to come in at night. So if we come in the morning, get it out of the way, I'm done with my training. And it's added, like, I don't know, when I was training, I've been taking Mondays off, but I usually didn't. I think I had like 8 to 12 sessions a week, depending on what was going on. So I've been training jiu-jitsu for 14 years, and I'm training now more than I ever have.
Right.
That's people from work texting me.
You're good.
I got to turn that off somehow.
You would be the one with technical difficulties. I listen to this lifting podcast, and like the oldest guy of the group, his phone is always doing stuff. So it makes sense.
This guy's asking questions about jobs, and I'm like,
yeah,
all nights, So we're good now.
Yeah.
I have it cut off, so we should be good.
Cool. No, it's good either way. I think it's funny.
What do you think about training at 5 a.m.?
I'll tell you the biggest thing for me is just like
Besides
you
what
said. Yeah, I mean, you get it all done. I go straight from there to work. It works out perfectly with my schedule. And if for whatever reason I don't have to go right into work, I'm at the gym. I can lift, whenever I go in later to work, that means I just do my lifting. So I've all in one clip. I've got my training in for the day. I've lifted. I work, I get home, I'm done for the day if I want to be. Today, I stopped by the grocery store on the way home and I'm not leaving the house. That is so not the way things used to be for me. I always was having 2 chunks of my day, and that just drains you. And it's all this wasted time, wasted travel. And it opened up I did almost a yoga class for every day of the week in a 2-month period. In October and September, right? And it's like, I have all this free time now, for a few months before that, I was going to the other gym. I joined the Planet Fitness a minute from my house just to get a little bit extra work in. And it's, I can do all that feasibly. I'm not getting the gym early to wait. And this is nothing against our gym. Every gym does it where, you get to the gym early, then you're waiting around where the class is going on before you. You don't want to be a nuisance. And then by the time you're warmed up, you stick around, you stay after class. I eat at the end of the day. So it's a lot to come back in for a second shift. Yeah. And there's a lot of things to it, man. But ultimately getting that part of my day done and home is amazing. And then just the discipline of being somebody that's willing to get up early. Is the top of my head cut off? I feel like my thing keeps shifting down. What in the hell?
It is. Now all I see is your ceiling.
I know. I lowered it, but we'll see what happens. I don't know why it's doing that. So if my video is,
there was a spider on your wall back there.
Yeah. So let's do this though. And I guess I'll do this too. But I'll have you guys started off because I haven't really introduced all this kind of stuff either. One of the questions we got, which is an obvious question, is not like making fun of the person who asked it, but it's obvious as in it's important to cover, is just go over what got you into it, how long you've been doing it, where you're at martial arts wise. I know, Bryan, you actually had a traditional martial arts background before Jiu Jitsu. So let's just hear about whatever you really want to say. The floor is yours, Bryan. Go ahead.
Well, I honestly, I'm going to be, I was thinking about this because I thought this question might come up, and the God's honest truth is fucking Wu-Tang Clan got me into martial arts. I remember, and it's clutch to be on this podcast because, especially with, your title and kind of where you base a lot of this stuff in. But man, I remember 12 years old, smoking my first fucking bong up in a buddy's house. There's like 12 of us in there, and we're listening to Enter the Wu-Tang, and I'm like, this is the baddest shit on the planet. Holy fuck, they're talking about Kung Fu. Kung Fu's got to be the shit. And then from that point on, I was looking for a fucking Kung Fu school. I ended up getting into one, a guy that was straight from Taiwan, had a bunch of different systems that he kind of learned and taught. And man, I was fucking hooked. That was it. Martial arts was the shit. Here's the scene of it all is I started Jiu Jitsu first before anything else. Probably when I was like 14 or 15 years old. So 3 years after my fucking Wu-Tang Clan epiphany that I want to fucking do Kung Fu and find it anywhere, I get into a Jiu Jitsu school. And I'm there for like 9 months. I'm the youngest kid coming in. There's a total of 3 people there learning under this blue belt. This is back in like 97, 96. Wow. So these, like, a blue belt on the East Coast was insane to find. And I'm learning this shit, and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And I liked it, but it wasn't fucking Kung Fu. I had fucking been brainwashed into this fucking mindset from watching movies and listening to the music that Kung Fu is the shit. And the minute I got the ability to go to a fucking Kung Fu gym, 16 years old, I got a driver's license, I was able to start driving up to this place. Done with Jiu Jitsu, fucking started doing that. I did that for a while. Probably a good 6-7 years of training that. And I loved every minute of it. If you ask me today, a lot of like my exercise and stretching and things like that, in terms of conditioning your body, I love that. It's like a faster paced moving yoga, which is why I don't even do yoga or subscribe to it. To me, like that old school traditional Kung Fu has some pretty good value in terms of the stretching, the flexibility, and just the main conditioning of your body. Not all of it, but good portions of it too. And then from there, I turned into a piece of shit when I was about 21 years old. Just got into like drinking, was smoking cigarettes and shit like that at the time. And that was my life for like 10 years, was like work, going out to the bar, smoking cigarettes, just not in shape, not doing anything at all. And then I'm driving home from work one day, and I pull up at a Chick-fil-A, and I look back and I see martial arts on the back of a building, and I go, fuck, that's a martial arts gym. I want to get back into that stuff. I got to start working out again, and I'm just not, I haven't been me for a while. So I start my first class, and this is method. I'm at the gym, and I'm doing my first jiu-jitsu class in like 10, 15, 20 years. And I'm like, you know what? I still got some pretty good condition from the Kung Fu and all that stuff. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to show off up in here a little bit and do things. And the other fuck that's on this podcast lays across me in a crucifix and just starts saying, oh, if you were going to be in a fight, you'd be having problems right here, and starts smacking me in the head, playing me with like a fucking cat plays with a mouse. And I'm like, son of a bitch. If I was in a fight, I would be having some problems right now. I need to start fucking taking this shit more seriously. And from that point, that was it. I was 100% hooked. The minute I had somebody on top of me and I didn't have a fucking answer for it, I didn't even have the ability to move. I literally felt like I was just basically like stapled to the ground. And I'm like, I want to be able to do this to motherfuckers. It's just as simple as that.
If it works on Kung Fu, it works on anything.
If it works on, if it beat the Wu-Tang Clan, it's fucking kicking the shit out of everything else.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's where I'm at. And you guys know the story from there because you guys have been part of it.
Yep. Yeah. And now, for those who don't know, Bryan's a brown belt. I'm currently a purple belt, and let's turn it over to the black belt, the evil leader. I've been watching The Ultimate Fighter. I'm obsessed with The Ultimate Fighter. Whenever I finish the season, I find whatever season I haven't watched in the longest, and I start it again. Okay. I'm the only person in the world that watches The Ultimate Fighter like I do. I'm just obsessed. Okay. And right now I'm watching Chael Sonnen versus John Jones, and Chael Sonnen,
that was a good one,
calling himself like the dark side. And Chael Sonnen in ways reminds me of like, he's a little bit more like he's a mixture of all of us in a way, but I love like this. He's like a good, noble guy, but he's also the dark side. And that's what we say before we turn it over to Kevin.
So for me, I was an athlete my whole life. And my first experience with jiu-jitsu, I watched like UFC 4. Me and my brother rented it. And this was years ago, before there was internet or anything. I wanted to take it, but I didn't really know where to look. So I kind of forgot about it. I played baseball, football. Basically, I was a jock. If I wasn't playing one of those sports, like on a league or something, then I was playing basketball or lifting weights. Pretty much my whole life. So fast forward, I get married, meet my wife. And I'm looking in the mirror one day and I see my gut and I'm like, this is not who I am. You know what I mean? I looked at my wife and I said, this isn't the person I am. And I think maybe a little bit afterwards, a pay-per-view commercial came up and it was the UFC. And I remember thinking to myself, man, they're still doing that. And I remembered jiu-jitsu. So I searched it because now the internet was a thing. So I searched it and I found the nearest place to my house. I walked in, saw Eddie. He was the first person I met. I think I met Michelle right after that. They actually didn't even own the school yet. I think I said, I want to sign up. I didn't even take a class. I came back the next day. I rolled right away. And the minute I stepped on, I've heard some other podcasts say, what was your feeling the first time you stepped on the mat? When I stepped on the mat, I just felt like I was home, and I've been there ever since. You know, and speaking of Bryan with Kung Fu, a long time ago, Pat Miletich used to have a shirt when he had all of his guys fighting for him, and it said on the back of it, "Your Kung Fu's no good here."
Oh,
just to let him know that.
Oh, damn, yeah, you let me know that when I was pinned to that fucking mat. Crucifix down, like, oh, your Kung Fu's no good here. Slap me in the face 10 times.
When I fought, that was like my main thing, to try to get people in the top crucifix. And I would do the same thing when I would spar, because it's such a hard position to get out of. You know what I mean? Like, you're stuck. I asked Eric Paulson about that years ago. I was like, how do you escape this position? And he goes, ooh, that's hard.
Yeah.
And he didn't really have an answer. He's like, you got to try to bridge, but getting out of it, especially when punches are involved, it's really difficult.
You had 4 MMA fights, right?
I had 4 amateur MMA fights. Yep.
We'll get into
and
that.
my goal was never to fight. When I walked into the gym, I just wanted to lose weight. That was it. I never planned on competing or any of that. It was just exercise. And I knew, because I wrestled for like 2 years, nothing major. It was just erecting. And I knew how much, how good of exercise that was and how tough it is. And then, as I started coaching and teaching, I was like, man, I should really, I don't want to look back on my life and say I should have did that. Yeah. So that's why I decided to fight. It had nothing to do about, I probably could have went further with it, but that was never really my goal. Once I competed in Jiu Jitsu, that was, I'm always going to compete as long as I can. You know what I mean? That's my goal anyway.
How far in was your first competition?
I trained for a year.
Okay.
Around a year, maybe 9 months. I don't know the exact timeline, but about a year. I went to my jiu-jitsu competition. I went to my first competition. I beat the first guy like 26-0. And I was so gassed out in my next match. I had the guy in all these submissions, and he got out of every one of them and beat me on points. So I learned, that was my very first tournament. It was Naga Worlds. It was so packed. It was arm to arm. It was at Rutgers College. And I remember thinking, this sucks. Because there was nowhere to warm up. There was nowhere to do that. Anything. I was in great shape then. And I was like, it was elbow to elbow. That's how packed it was.
People would have traveled to that event back then. Even when I first started the big Naga events, Battle at the Beach and Naga Worlds, a lot of people traveled to those events because there was a time where like Naga was the thing outside of IBJJF. Yes. Like that was pretty 100%. Much.
Even IBJJF wasn't that big because they didn't have all the locations like they do now.
Okay.
Like you pretty much had to compete in that in California, and that was it.
Right.
And back then, I don't think you had to have paperwork signed, but I remember being at a Naga, and the guy that runs New Breed was there selling merchandise. Wow. And he told me, he goes, we're going to start a grappling organization. And he did. Like a year later, he had it started. I remember when the Good Fight tournament started, because they weren't a thing. Like you said, there was grappling, what it was called, Grappler's Quest. Mm-hmm. And Naga had tournaments all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think they have even more now, but there was none in Maryland. I think when I started, there was like, I don't even think there was a black belt in Maryland, if I remember correctly. So
yeah, there was that guy McGilla. McGilla had some people, McGilla and like Lloyd Irvin related stuff, but Julius wasn't a black belt. He was a brown belt who owns Crazy 88, and a lot of those guys,
Is that working?
Yeah. I don't know why this thing says that, but it's good. We got a gift from Zoom. Running out of time. We've removed a 40-minute timeline. We're good though, either way. I don't know why it said that, but we're good.
What were we talking? Okay. So there was only them, and McGilla was too far away anyway. So I think Lee that at the time owned Baltimore BJJ, he was a purple belt, if I remember correctly. And all comes along with it.
Yeah. And it's funny, this goes to show you what I've always loved about this. So I was involved in powerlifting before jiu-jitsu. It has same kind of like team camaraderie, and you're so focused on what you're doing and the training when you take it seriously. Like when I was training for powerlifting, I wasn't the best, but I was training to compete at fucking nationals, dude. I was training alongside guys who qualified for worlds, qualified and won the Arnolds. Like I was around like people who lived and breathed powerlifting and or weightlifting and or even strongman. And it's like you take it as seriously as you would, even more seriously, because there's maturity about adults doing it who are sacrificing. They don't have to do it. It's not their college ride. It's not like kind of like an escape from like, you know, pushing off growing up. Like these are people that have adulted, have families, all this, and they're still finding, like you two, especially, it's like you have your career, you have a family, and you still are driven. That's a different type of drive that most even high level college athletes do not have. You know, so for me, I mean, growing up, I was big into WWF and wrestling. I always thought fighting was cool. Fighting was cool. All the guys on my dad's side of the family are just good at fighting. You know, my papaw, his father was a drill instructor, and they would just make comments about, boy, you don't want to piss a Turpin boy off. You know, you don't want to be on the other side of this fist when it starts flying. It was just, that was the normal type of talk. And then on his mom's side, they were all crazy Native American coal miners who, if they hadn't beat everybody up in town, they might have stabbed them. I'm not even kidding, dude, you know? And my dad was raised wild. He was an athlete. He was like the king of all jocks. He was the best at any sport he ever wanted to be good at. And I came from that. And my brother, older than me, was a good athlete, good at baseball, pretty good at basketball, got into other stuff too, but we grew up athletic, and I always thought fighting was cool. I had a brother who could kick anybody's ass, dude, from a young age. He was pulling people off the jungle gym and fighting 3 kids at the same time. One time he stuck up for me at a party, and he like took on 12 kids all at once. Like I am the least likely person to be good at fighting in my family, but I always was around it. I grew up adoring people like Clint Eastwood, Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, just guys. I thought it's the coolest. And I wasn't particularly great at it. I wanted exciting moments. I liked the idea of fighting, and I invited it, but I never really hung tough in a fight as a kid. I either hit people and it was over, or like, it was never like you hung tough in like a 5-minute fight. Like I just never had that mentality. I sucked at football, and there was this little bit of insecurity. Like, you know, I'm a big, strong guy. People expect me to be good at fighting. But in the back of my mind, I remember that time in 7th grade, you know, this small little kid who had an old man who beat him up, punched me in the mouth a few times, and he was tougher than me. Like I remembered not being good at this thing I loved and adored. So I was getting into sports from like, you know, I did drama related stuff, performance, like art type stuff. With the slam poetry and stand-up comedy. And I had this MMA podcast from being a comedian, and I had a co-host who trained at Ground Control, and I interviewed a couple guys from Method. I went to school with Eddie. So Eddie, the owner of Method, and I hung around the gym a couple times. I came and I trained with Mike Ferrante and LaCarlo Beatty, and rolled them, having no experience. And I really liked it. But here's what's funny. I never loved jiu-jitsu. Like my favorite fighters were Anderson Silva. I liked the way like Randy Couture was as like a guy. But I mean, it was always cool. These people who could knock people out. Fedor. I liked jiu-jitsu. I liked people who were finishers, but I never saw myself as that person. But once I got to the MMA gym, training for fights, it was just obvious jiu-jitsu was more fun to practice for me. I love fighting. And when push comes to shove, I want to punch a motherfucker in the mouth, dude. I don't want to do this jiu-jitsu shit to somebody who pisses me off. I'm being honest. I want to hit somebody. It's like, I love the idea of clocking somebody, but A, if you're going to fight, you need to be good at grappling. You have to be good at grappling. And B, I don't like getting hit in training. I don't like hard sparring with friends very much. I don't look forward to it. There's nothing about jiu-jitsu that is like tough for me. I know that sounds crazy, but I enjoy it. It sucks to get out of breath. It sucks to like go against somebody, I guess, who can smash you, but it never really like it never really I just am naturally, that's my type of physical sport. I think even like when you get more towards wrestling, it kind of intimidates me in a way that maybe football did. It's a bit quicker pace. I was scared of the ball in baseball. Like getting hit by a pitch used to make me kind of anxious when I went against a fast pitcher. So there's just something about striking and getting hit that I've got to be in the regular scheme of it to want to go there. Long story short, jiu-jitsu just came naturally to me. And after a couple breakups, you just put your all into this thing. And eventually I found a way to fall in love with it. I think it was through listening to podcasts. I started listening to jiu-jitsu podcasts, and I started just taking it more and more seriously. You know, I remember I choked my first, I beat my first black belt in competition. Video went viral. Choked him in his full guard, all that, you know, the history of that. And I'm like, man, you know, like if I fall in love with this sport, I might really get good at it. I might really be passionate about it. And yeah, I'd say over the past few years, I fell more and more in love. I mean, it's all a big piece. Having this account is a big accountability thing for me. You know, I am that type of person. Like I like the idea of living a life that would be like a movie or a book I would want to read. You know, I like having a very interesting and walking the walk of things that fascinate me. So it's almost like a pursuit of like acting, not on the screen, but in my life. Like I wasn't naturally the quintessential grappler or whatever, but I like the idea of playing out these roles in my life that I get to experience. So that kind of catches you up to where I'm at. And like Kevin and Wunder competes, you know, a good bit, and more, I can tell you're very interested in the competition side, but like, I'm definitely like Kevin in that, like, I don't know about you, Wunder, you probably agree, but I see myself competing for as long as I physically can. What do you think?
I mean,
competing,
as far as like competing goes, I want to be able to do, I mean, we're going to keep saying names that people might not necessarily know on this podcast, but I mean, you can look them up. I want to be Mike Atkins, man.
Yeah.
I want to be in my 60s and still throwing it down. Because look, it takes something to be that. It takes something to be there. And I know a lot of people discount like people who have hit Masters, Worlds, and things like that. But the reality is like, yeah, they're not Masters, Worlds. Those guys aren't your top tier athlete. It's not. They're Father Time's undefeated. But to me, every time I train, and I think I've said this in the past, like to me, that's my opponent. Like Father Time is it, and that motherfucker's undefeated. I want to be able to do shit as long as I possibly can. I want to crash this ship into the ground, and athletically, I want to be able to do stuff into a very old age, which is possible as long as you keep up with it. I think there's plenty of examples out there. Are you going to get hurt? Or are you going to get banged up? Yeah, you're going to get hurt, banged up in anything that you do. But I mean, sitting around is just not for me. I gotta at least continue to train. And if I'm gonna train, the way I see it, like part of the training is testing that training against somebody else who's doing the same training as you. Mm-hmm. So are you training against another? Are you out training somebody who's still putting in work at your age and at your weight level and all that stuff? Are you still doing the same things and able to keep up with the best at that? To me, like that's my goal, is to at least stay up with that. That and to crush as many 20-year-olds as I possibly can. Fuck those little bastards. Fuck those little bastards. Make them hate their lives and make them wish that they were in their like late 30s, early 40s, and be like, damn, I can't wait to get that good one day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, do you remember when we had the couple wrestlers come in and I was grappling them? Kevin, you were there that day. And the one was like he wrestled at state. It was a second at the States wrestler, grappling him and grabbing a hold of him. And his buddies over there, come on, do your moves. I said, what moves? He goes, hey, he's a state champ, or he didn't say, I don't know what he said. He might've said state champ, but he actually, I think, was the second place. And I said, a state champ at what? He goes, high school wrestling. He said, or I go, high school, I'm a grown ass man. And I just started shucking his ass around.
Yeah, I do remember that. I do.
Yeah, I love it. I love getting a hold of young bucks. And I mean, I'm not old, but I mean, I think some people who are 20 might think once you're over 30, that they're used to the norm. I mean, Bryan, you're what, 39? Kevin, are you 43?
Yep. I'm 43.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of
I'm
that's
33.
mindset too.
It is. I plan on
So a
making
lot
a
of-
meme one day, a picture of just being on top of some freaking athletic 20-year-old and basically saying like, it's like every freaking midlife crisis to get on top of some midlife 20-year-old. I think I might be doing it wrong type deal.
In the years I've been at the gym, I don't know how many young people have came in and they're like 15 and they're said, I think I started too late. I just don't get that. I've heard that from 18-year-old kids. I've heard it from 12-year-olds, and I'm like, you're not even started yet. You're still a kid, and they already have that mindset of it's too late for them. I don't get that.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. I've heard that and seen that a lot.
Let's even
It's
just
unreal,
go around just so people understand the context. Like I'll start off with some injuries I had just before I ever even did jujitsu. Like there were years of my life from powerlifting where I had trained through injuries and did anything I could do to get under the bar. Like I had mornings I couldn't walk for 3 hours. I had to figure out a way to get my shoes on. It was so excruciating to drive in my car seat. I remember when more than a 5-minute car ride would be the death of me. I was so messed up for so many years of my life. All I wanted to do was get to that bar and figure out how to pick it up. I was going to deadlift 550 that day, and I didn't give a shit if I was injured. And I did that to my body. And so many people would have said, no way could I do this shit. No way. And I was still unworking a lot of that my first year or two. I still had some of the lingering chronic injuries, and I only feel more healthy as I work through this stuff, as I find healthier ways, as I become wiser. I mean, I could be way more specific than that. I mean, all the stuff that's happened. Used to be 340 pounds. Kevin used to be heavier as well. It's like, it's so easy to look at the reasons why you wouldn't be able to do it. And you get new people in and they think every little thing is career ending, and every little thing, well, I played football, well, I did this. It's you don't even know. And you mentioned Mike Atkin. I mean, the guy's 67 years old. Okay. 67. He wrestled since like he was a boy. Okay. Golden Gloves boxer, military, was the baddest bouncer in a mean biker bar area. I mean, just the guy has been through a lot, and he doesn't make any damned excuses. And he's out there and he wants you to give it your all, and he's going to give it his all. And he finds a way. And like Bryan recovered from a pretty serious, injury, surgery. Kevin's had at least a surgery since I've been at the gym. I try not to go to the doctor, but I'm sure I'll have something eventually. I don't know what's wrong with me, but go ahead.
Before we go into that, you said something about toughness. Do you remember what you said to me a long time ago?
You have to be, I don't know.
So you came up to me and you said, I'm just not tough. Do you remember that?
I remember thinking that. I don't remember. It sounds like something I would have said.
Do you remember what I said back to you?
What's that?
I said, toughness is a learned attribute.
Okay.
Tough.
I remember.
And all the stuff you're talking about right now with you getting up and getting under the bar, that's all toughness.
Right.
I think toughness, a lot of people will say, I'm not tough enough. I don't believe in that. But toughness is something you learn over time, in my opinion. And I see that excuse a lot too. I'm just not tough enough. I don't even really know what that means. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people give me that excuse too. You guys both know me. I'm not big on excuses. I've always been like that. I don't know why exactly, but I just, it's like I heard the other day, well, I got to go to work tomorrow. I was like, well, so I do too, motherfucker. I'm here. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. We need to balance that, but I think that toughness is just something. I think you've gotten way more tough in the time that I've known you.
Now, what
know,
was you?
so
What did you say the other day about Mike? We said something about excuses and finding reasons not. Do you remember what you said on that?
yes, well, you what I posted on Instagram.
Yeah, remind me what you said on that.
So I said that, you know, a lot of people in jiu-jitsu talk about ego and this and that. And I said, if you get your excuses in check, your ego will just fall in line. Because a lot of times, in my opinion, over the time that I've been, a lot of, you know, you change over time. And the more you do this, that happens. And I think that a lot of time our ego is like, you know, like what we do in the morning with the escapes. A lot of gyms don't do that, right? It's going to be really tough if I let you mount me and I try to escape, right? But if I haven't, so there's ego-driven people and there's process-driven people. I'm a process person. So an ego-driven person is going to come in and they want to beat everybody in the room.
Right.
Usually when shit starts going wrong, they're the people that lose their shit. You think Conor McGregor, John Jones. The thing is with ego-driven people is they usually have an abundance of talent, right? But when you come in and, you know, you have that ego and you're like, well, you know, I'm 40 years old. I shouldn't roll with that 20-year-old kid. That 20-year-old kid's probably just as scared as you are. That's an excuse. And you can say to him, hey, you know what? Take it easy. You know, let's start here. We can start from a position. We don't have to start standing and we can just get through it. You know what I mean? And like you said, and some people will stub their toe and they'll be like, I'm done. You know what I mean? I need 6 weeks off for a broken finger. Really?
Right.
I just don't, I don't know. You guys told me a long time ago, I'm intense. I never thought of myself as intense. And I came home and I asked my wife and I said, am I intense? And she said, yeah, in a way. So, but that's what I was talking about. I was like, you know, you look at Mike Atkins, he can make an excuse. He's too old. Right. And I know we all have a little bit of an ego. I'm not saying that, but I think if you take those excuses and you put them over here and you just show up and you do what you're supposed to do and you do your work, that ego will get checked pretty quick. You know what I mean? It's like Bryan or you or me and how we start. If I let you start with a rear naked choke and it's locked all the way in, it's going to be hard to get out of it. But if I get out of it 9 out of 10 times, I'm doing pretty good. Not the name drop, like I already have a couple times, but I heard Gary Tonin does that all the time. You know, and he's one of the best grapplers in the world. You know, I heard John Donaher say that, you know, white belts will come up to him and say, hey, I did really good against Gary. Well, John's like, well, you know, he's kind of letting you do that. You know what I mean? And he gets out of 9 or 10 deep rear naked chokes and he's one of the best escape people in the world, you know? Yeah. That's what I said on Instagram. So I just wanted to see if you remembered that.
Yeah.
I got off track now.
Bryan, you got anything on injuries and the excuses and all that, you know, your type of mentality with all that or experience?
Well, to follow up with what Kevin was saying about you in particular, it's funny because you're afraid of impact pain is what it is, which is funny because that's like the short pain that just kind of goes away.
I know.
But you walk around and carry some you carry some burners all the time, freaking straight like muscular injuries and things that are just basically out of place, pinched nerves, things like that. You carry those around all the time and keep moving. Those are way worse, but I don't know, it's just funny for me to think like how you keep saying you're afraid of getting struck, but you walk around in some pain quite a bit.
Yeah.
No, I would just basically say like to going back similar to like along with Kevin said, like there's a lot of people that come into a gym or come into the sport in particular saying how much they love it and that they're going to be doing it forever. It's the best thing that they've ever come across. And all of those things are true. But the reality is like, you can tell who's going to stay the minute they have that first injury, the first bad one. It's one of those sports where if you get away with that without having a bad one, then you're pretty lucky because it's going to happen. I mean, for anybody to say otherwise is just kind of you're not training to get to your best self. Then is what I would say. If you're training to improve yourself and try to get to the best version of yourself, you're probably going to get injured doing this, and it's probably going to be one that'll sideline you for a while. So tell me about how much you love jiu-jitsu. Tell me about how much you love grappling. Tell me how much you love about fighting sports in general the minute you've had that injury. Because those are the guys you know are going to stick around and stay and keep getting good at this. And yeah, that's just kind of like my thought and philosophy on it. It's like, hey, it's going to happen. You can make the decision. Like your life is, if it's really that meaningful to your life, the whole Savage thing, us coming in at 5 a.m., you're going to find a way to make it a part of your life. So if you are going to get injured doing the sport, or if you are going to take an injury to it, you're going to find a way to come back from that injury, or you're going to find the best version of yourself with that injury. What's the guy? I know Kevin probably has talked about this or heard about it. The guy who quote unquote invented half guard, it was because he had bad knees. He couldn't wrap his legs around somebody because he blew his knee out, and he's in Brazil and can't afford a knee surgery to get it repaired. So instead of doing a full close guard, he's doing a half guard. Well, that's a guy that, hey, surgery wasn't even an option for him. And he had something that was structurally wrong, but he had the choice of, well, I could just pack it up and hobble around the rest of my life, or I could figure out what's the best version of me with this injury. And I think that's really what I think everybody, I mean, to me personally, that's kind of like my driving philosophy is, with all the other stuff I got going on in life, what's the best version of me in this that I love? Because we're all fucked up. We all got things that are going on. We all got things that are going to set us back or prevent us from being the absolute tip-top perfect shape and perfect version. But what's the best one you could be with all the shit you got going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. And something that we all do that I think some people are not willing to do is we all have our own unique sort of balancing nature of, you know, Kevin is into sort of like, he's very interested into some of the biohacking stuff, and he's experimental with, you know, trying out grounding mats, all these things, you know, you guys, I used to be on it, but the whoop straps with the recovery data, and Bryan has his, the Kung Fu stuff that he still uses. And I'm always doing something strength coach minded. I've always, you know, I've been doing the yoga lately. I've always done something that tries to balance out what I do in the gym. And that is something that if you don't do it, you are going to be even more lucky having gone through a career and not getting seriously injured, because if you don't do something to try and balance out what we do on the mats and kind of neutralize and strengthen and harden your body and get the best recovery in some way, we don't all do perfect, you know, not all of us are to the T with diets. Not all of us have the healthiest everything. Not all of us sleep as much as we should, but we are very focused on the picture outside of our training, which is not something everybody's willing to do. That's one big piece. And then we all love it to the extent where we can't imagine training so hard that we hate it. I think our bodies would break before our minds when it comes to tough training. That's something we all can relate to. So something that if anybody's at, you don't have to hate hard training. You can love it to the, I mean, I guess I can't teach it, but you don't have to just listen to people who tell you you're going to hate it. It's tough and it sucks and getting smashed in bottom side control sucks. I mean, you can find ways to not mind. I don't know if it's an ego switch. I don't know if it's comfort in uncomfortable positions, just a perspective, but all of us have that going for us. And the other thing is we all spend time doing something, whether it's our warm-ups, extracurricular, we take note of things that balance out what you do in the gym. Two big pieces, man. Those are two crucial things.
So
I forgot to name all my injuries.
Oh
Are
yeah,
you naming all your injuries?
yeah. Oh, we didn't do
wants to go
the
first?
injury naming yet.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
say
yeah, I
whatever
forgot.
you want on that. I forget if you spoke on it, Kevin, but you didn't really say the injuries too much, I don't
No.
think.
Now let's go through the injuries. Let's get Kevin's first.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Mine first.
Mhm.
So the one I had surgery on is I had my left knee scoped. I've tore cartilage between my ribs. That was probably that was the most painful one. I wouldn't say it was the baddest one. My elbow has nerve damage in it. which I'm having that looked at now. My elbows don't go straight anymore. Part of the reason, that's why I don't wear the gi all the time. Because if I grip like 2 days in a row, I literally, my hand grips are gone the next day, like the third day. I probably, the cartilage in my rib, I fractured a bunch of ribs. But the one that scared me the most wasn't really an injury. I had a cellulitis infection inside of my knee. I don't know if you guys were there when I had that. My knee blew up real big. I think you were, Bryan, right?
No, you had the surgery when I had come in.
Mm-hmm.
You had just had the surgery, and you had
Oh.
told me about the cellulitis because of some other shit going on.
Yeah, my knee blew up and there was like all this fluid inside of it. And I went to the doctor the first time and they gave me an IV and it started to go away. And I got on the mats too soon and it blew up again. And then they gave me a bunch of shots, wouldn't go away. Went back to the doctor and the little doctor's like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, whew, this isn't good. And I said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to give me an IV because that one seemed to work the best. Give me the IV and I'm going to just call out of work for 2 weeks. And it eventually went away. But that one scared me. When a doctor tells you they don't know what to do, it's scary. But that's the majority of my injuries. There's little dinks and tears here, but even when I had my knee surgery, I was back. I was on the mats grappling in 10 days. It was supposed to be a month, but I came back anyway. So
You ever
it was just
broke a
scare.
bone? You ever get anything like obviously broken?
Besides toes and fingers, no. When I was sparring, I would break my toes and fingers all the time, and I would just pop them back in and keep going. But nothing besides scar tissue on my face. I have a bunch of stitches in my face from sparring, but nothing. And I only fought as an amateur, but I sparred all the time, and I sparred hard. Like you were saying, you didn't like. You probably wouldn't be my friend if you sparred with me years ago, Turk. It was bad. It was definitely the wrong way to do it. But that's what I thought it was supposed to be when I trained with pros. That's how they sparred. So a lot of those young guys that are fighters now, they came in during that period of my career and they were coming in and I didn't care how new they were. We were fighting. It wasn't even sparring. It was fighting, truthfully. And that's wrong. It was wrong. But anyway, that's mine. If you want to go or Bryan.
Yeah. What was your
that
match?
double rib crack not too long ago too. You had both ribs busted not too long ago too.
That was well, I had 5 fractured ribs before the Pan Am tournament.
And you were training still with 5 fractured ribs.
Yes.
You were taking it easy. You're playing top game only.
Yes.
With 5 fractured ribs, still getting ready to train for Pan Ams, and you still went down there and freaking drew that guy out. Oh, that's crazy.
I talked to my wife about it. She's like, well, the doctor said it heals in 6 weeks. I'm like, yeah, but I got to train. This is like the biggest tournament I've ever done. Mm-hmm. I got to still train for it.
Yeah.
I can't just sit around and do nothing. That was, ribs are painful. Like they don't take that long. There's nothing you can do for them, but they just hurt, man. It's like, and then like you guys said about having a physical job, I got to go to work. That's kind of that blue collar mentality. It's just, you put your boots on and you go. It's how it is, So
yeah,
you go ahead, Bryan. You probably had the worst injury out of all. I don't know.
The herniated discs in the back was bad, and people get them all the time in grappling. I just got the lucky ones that completely like pinched off a nerve, and yeah, that was a bad year in my life. I went to some dark places that year, but I can't complain because it's back. It's fixed. It bothers me to this day, but you exercise around it to get that up or to keep up with what you can possibly do. And again, like you just got to be the best version of yourself. The only other one that I had that was bad was back in like the old traditional kung fu days. Like I completely dislocated my left shoulder to the point where that sucker popped and like was like resting down at like my ribs. And had that popped it back in, I was basically not moving for 3 months. But to this day, like my left arm, it is not in the same, anywhere near the same, like it doesn't have the same mobility or strength as the right one at all. I mean, you put me in an Americana, as soon as you lock up your wrist, it's an immediate tap. Like that's an easy one to catch me on because there's no movement in that shoulder.
Yeah.
But those are the only real two I had. Cracked ribs, injured cartilage, all that stuff.
Tell them about your hysterectomy. No, sorry. No.
I got pictures of that.
I had
That's what
that joke
basically
planned.
looked
I was like, which one am I going to use that on? So, yeah, for me, honestly, it's not really worth talking about my injuries because I haven't had anything other than just bringing back some of the back injuries. I had really, really bad golfer's elbow in both sides from the way I was punching for a while, especially sparring. I would kind of keep my elbow low and it would torque it inward, kind of like Americanaing myself. And I've trained through all of that kind of stuff. My injuries are more internal stuff that like you can't really see for sure. I've never had anything swell up really crazy. I probably have like normal meniscus tears. I know I have nerve issues, but I am that sort of alternative. I know a lot about alternative methods. I jokingly say I'm a witch doctor, but I mean, my main focus in strength and conditioning is just figuring out how to feel good through any means necessary, you know, within my reach. And I can't give myself surgery. So that's kind of been my thing there. A question we got a handful of questions. I mean, we're going to at least cover a couple. I got asked about gi and no gi. I'll go first on this one, just what we think about the two and differences. I think that it's very, very bad to have a strong opinion. And I usually notice that it's weaker minded people that go so far out of their way to strongly distinguish between hating one versus the other, especially early on. It's a weird thing for somebody to be new and be like, well, I just am more of a no gi guy or a gi. I don't really like the gi as well. Like it's all just grappling to me. Like what matters more to me is whether or not my opponent is a fucking wrestler, a leg locker, like whether or not they're an armbar specialist. Like those factors matter a whole lot more as to whether or not it's gi and no gi. Like, of course, a gi guy's guard is going to be hard to pass in ways that, you know, a no-gi guy isn't. And yeah, the grips can get annoying. The lapel grips in standing up are a little bit annoying, but at the end of the day, it's not that much of a difference. And I like what you said the other day on behalf of Catch Wrestling, Kevin, which was, you know, anybody, any rule set. I just don't care. I got asked one time when I was at Delaware helping out. Somebody asked me, do you like starting on bottom? Do you like being on top? I'm like, I like any of it. I just want to grapple. I don't care what we're doing. I don't care if I have to standing pass. I don't care if it's my game, your game, whatever, imposing my will, countering, etc. And for me, being a no-gi, being that I mainly train in the no-gi, for me, I've just, and I don't like what Kevin said about grips. I don't like grabbing sleeve grips when people rip their arms and rip my fingers. So I've just developed the lapel game, and it actually, like, I have a loop choke game and a lapel grip that is as good as a lot of, you know, a lot of black belts I roll with. I have a lapel grip, and I've gotten good at a couple things. I could probably get a gi grip based pass down and like a couple like belt grips and the pant grip, that especially when you grab like the waist part of the pant. There's some grips that I think I could get better at stacking people with it. But I think it's bad to have a strong opinion or to really care that much. Like grappling is grappling. Just go out there and smack hands. I don't, you know, I don't like the whole, you know, gi is gay sort of thing. I don't know. And Bryan, what do you got?
Well, I would have to say that gi is gay.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. To an extent, I prefer, just when it comes to just which do I prefer more? I prefer no-gi for sure. If I want to go in and just basically like get a good workout in and feel like I'm getting like probably like a more enjoyable experience out of grappling, it's going to be no-gi. But I say that and I bitch every time we do gi jiu-jitsu, it's because that's probably because of you guys, to be honest. My game has to change around so much for gi jiu-jitsu, probably because I'm used to like rolling with you guys, and dealing with like trying to basically work on being a little bit quicker with more escapes. So gi jiu-jitsu, it's necessary because it changes the whole concept of the game to me entirely. Where you said Terp, like it's not, you can't understand how certain people like can feel that that training's miserable and hard because they've been smashed in side control and they've had this and that. That's just because you're a heavyweight.
Yeah, I believe it.
Because at 160 pounds, you son of a bitch, it sucks being underneath you guys. And there was times probably, I mean, all last year around this point, I mean, my game probably had not been developed enough. Like I was still feeling it like every single session. Every morning session, me, you, and Kev would finish. I was freaking, my back was hurting. I was sore. I was tired because I had to change my game so much, and I've adapted so much of my no-gi game to being able to get away from you guys in particular. It's probably been a detriment to my gi game. So they're both very important. They're both good, and I would not want to like basically say one's better than the other because they both offer, again, the best way to improve yourself is in a different version.
Yeah. Kevin?
My turn?
Yes.
Uh-oh, here we go. I'm gonna start saying some controversial stuff.
Yeah.
My own personal opinion, if I look at my own game, there's actually parts of my game that are better in the gi than no gi. I've always done no gi more, and I also used to teach no gi on Friday nights all the time. So I kind of, and plus believe it or not, I started leg locks really early, and they were only allowed at no gi. The other thing is, like we were talking about tournaments before, you would go to a Naga and they'll tell you you're going to go at 1 and you go at 7:30. And that was just your no-gi division. And then like one time my gi division started at 11. So I got into where I just started doing no-gi more. I think there's benefits to both of them. However, I think as time goes on and jiu-jitsu is more popular, I don't think you're going to see as much people who are gold medalists win at a high level in gi and no gi. And I kind of agree with Gordon Ryan a little bit. I think the thing that keeps the gi alive is the belt system, because everybody wants to get a belt. But I think that eventually those things are going to start to separate. I mean, I can already see it on the East Coast, in the Northeast. There's certain schools that are more no gi oriented, and there's certain schools that are more gi oriented. I mean, you can see it just in our area. On top of that, there's more money in no-gi, and no-gi is more popular right now. That's not exactly my opinion. I still, if we go to a gym and they do more gi, I'll wear my gi. I'm not against it. And kind of like Turk, my game doesn't change a whole lot. I mean, that's hard to believe for somebody that's only 155 pounds, but hey.
Yeah. Kilos.
But no, my game doesn't change a whole lot. Even though I use mostly no-gi grips, I do grip the gi sometimes. And like I said, it just kills my elbows and my grips. And like the next day I can't do a push-up because because of the nerve damage I have in my elbows. So yeah. I've always plus no-gi is more convenient. You know what I mean? So, but like you said, I totally agree with anybody from catch wrestling. That was kind of my start in a way. And that's what them guys said. It was anybody, anytime, any place. Now they would fight over the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
But a lot of times the catch wrestlers would take on whoever, the term no holds barred comes from catch wrestling. So, if you enjoy it and it helps you get in shape and it helps you accomplish your goals, do which one you like. That's my opinion.
Right.
To whoever asked the question, you know what I mean? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Stop caring about what other people think. I know there's a lot of stuff about jiu-jitsu on the internet. Some of it's good stuff. A lot of it's just shit, in my opinion, for someone that's been around for 14 years. Don't take it as gospel. It's not. You know what I mean? But if you like gi, do gi. If you like no gi, do no gi. As long as it helps you accomplish your goals. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and two important things just to note real quick is like you mentioned, Gordon Ryan. He's a good example. When people say, "Yeah, does gi improve your no-gi game?" I mean, sure, it's pretty damn similar. If anything can improve your jujitsu, doing jujitsu in a different pair of clothing can improve it. But is it necessary? That's the ultimate question, and the answer is absolutely not, because the best no-gi guys in the world do not train in the gi. Period. It can teach you lessons. Swinging two bats at once can teach you important lessons about swinging one bat at a time. There's all sorts of things that can help, but ultimately, if you're whatever you're going to train in, whatever you're going to do, that is the only thing you really have to do. And I bring this up, especially people early on, like, are you at a school that trains gi? If the answer is yes, do you want to limit your training times, schedules, and partners to people who only train in no-gi? And we go to some open mats where it's split. Like, there's an open mat. Some people are wearing a gi, some people are wearing a no-gi. Well, I'm just going to wear the gi pants, have a rash guard on, and have my gi right there, because I'm training with any motherfucker that wants to smack my hand and train with me. I'm looking at the highest ranked people, and I'll be goddamned if I show up to a mat and I skip out rolling with the best guys in the room because they're wearing a gi and I'm wearing no gi. No way. And and something just to explain that sort of attitude of that, like, anybody, anywhere, anytime, whatever, no excuses sort of attitude. It's like, I can't tell you how many times, and Kevin can attest when we've been around mats, and you hear it sometimes at our own gym, but sometimes we go places, especially when you're a visitor and you do well, and people will be like, "Man, I'm just so tired. I'm having an off day." And it's like, bro, you don't know me from Adam. You don't know this dynamic. You're tired. We trained at 5 a.m. this morning. Then we went out and worked all damn day long. We're nursing injuries we're not telling you about, and we're whooping your ass. So I don't want to hear this, "I'm tired because I was up late last night." Like, you don't even know. So if we were both fresh, this would be even worse, probably. Just some funny little things to note that I thought of there. Do you have anything else to say on that before we move on? Good. All right, cool.
I'm good. Yeah.
I'm going to pull up another message. This is let me scroll back in here. He had this guy. Oh, tips for beginners. A talk on training frequency. I'll real quick give you my thing on this. Training frequency. I think once you learn the ability to have a baseline volume zero pace, meaning somebody who runs 5Ks can't run a marathon, but you want to learn your marathon pace. You want to learn how to dial it back. So if you want to train, you should be able to train to some capacity. That is part of the growing pains of white belt. They're resistive. They're tense in ways that maybe overtraining. They can't stay on the healthy side of their threshold, and maybe they need to work into a systematic approach. Maybe it's not like them to kind of flourish in the gray area, but I'm pretty good, especially now, at, if I want to train, I can train. I'm in control of my output. Now I'm a strong heavyweight, so I can literally go out there and train 2 hours and keep my heart rate at 120 tops and just chill. I might not win every round, but I can have the ability to just go out there and sort of that be water, just be as flowy as possible. It's not an agreed flow roll, but I don't have to, I'm in control of my own output. And if I'm going to get tapped 3 times in a round, that's the way it's going to be, because I'm not willing to work harder than I think is a healthy amount. I'd rather do quantity instead of like intensity sometimes. So sometimes I like doing the marathon pace and trying to be calm. As a matter of fact, Sean Doherty mentioned training calm and not getting into that adrenaline, high octane. It's a good learning tool. So I like doing that. Let's cover the training frequency, and then let's circle back for any tips for beginners. So how do you think about the frequency, guys? Bryan first, I guess. Yeah, we'll do that.
As much as you can do. It's just as simple as that. If you can train 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and your body lets you do it, then that's as much as you should be training. If you can get 8 or 9 sessions in, then that's what you should be doing. If that's what you really want. And that's the best way you're going to progress is training to the fullest amount that you possibly can train. It's just as simple as that. In terms of frequency goes, like if you feel like at 4 times a week, you're maxed out and you can't get anything out of it, then that's where you should stop. You should continue to work towards that 4 times a week, because if you're not getting anything out of day 5, then use that time to recover. I don't know. That's kind of where, do as much as you can.
Yeah. Kevin?
Before I answer that, I really like that Sean thing when he was talking about the flow, kind of, not really flow. I don't like to say that, but not getting your heart rate way up. I do that sometimes too. Frequency for a beginner. So with this question, I have to know the person, truthfully, to answer it the way I would like to. Depends on the person. If he's a wrestler and he's, pretty athletic, as much as he can, but the other thing we have to look at is if you're training competition pace 7 times a week, you're going to burn out unless you start saucing up. That could change.
Yeah.
But it depends on what you're doing and how you're trying to learn. And as long as it's not, what I've seen with a lot of beginners that get hurt, not like a off the wall injury, we talked about GPP, general physical preparedness, and they come in and they just go as hard. That's when an injury is going to happen, in my opinion, from what I've seen over the years. So, if you can only come twice a week, just try to be consistent. I see the more problem is not just in coming in 2 times a week. It's when I walk through the door, in my opinion, and I know it's hard for a beginner because they don't know a whole lot. I was talking to somebody the other day. I have an idea of what I want to do, right? If I want to do 5 rounds and maybe today it's to escape something. Now that's down the road. But I think, be consistent is really important. If you come in 2 times a week for 2 months, it's going to add up to whereas I see a lot of people, they'll come in 7 times a week or 6 times a week. They'll go as hard as they can. And in a month, they're burnt out. They're done. You know what I mean? So a lot of people out there, I don't know how true it is. They say the max number is 4 times a week. Everybody can't do that. Just try to be consistent until you build that up. And you're going to gas out at first because I'm not saying it's wrong to use strength or strength isn't important, but you're going to use strength at the wrong times. So you're going to gas out, especially as a beginner. We all do it. I still do it sometimes. You know what I mean? So just do what you can do. You'll know if you're overdoing it. You know what I mean? And a lot of it depends on your partners too. I mean, if you're going hard, and everybody's going as hard as they possibly can all the time, that's going to be hard to make it every day. My thing is just a steady pace over time. And then once you've been training for a little while, if you want to up it, but on the other side of that, I don't want to tell you to not work. Sometimes we say things like that and people think, let's not work as hard. That's not what I mean. Just whatever you can do in that amount of time without exerting yourself and making it, if you're having fun, it'll be great. That's the big key, man. Come in and have fun. Still train hard. I still have things you want to accomplish, but what I've seen in the past is a new person will come in, they'll train all the time, and then they're gone in 2 months.
Yeah.
Instead of just, it's, what's that saying? It's a marathon, not a sprint. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. That's what I think. So that's on training time. And there was another part to this question too, right?
Yeah. We'll circle back to that now.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that, that makes a lot of sense. It's a gray area, man. I mean, there might be certain people you want to avoid when you're super tired, or you might have to tell a couple of people. You don't want to get in that habit. And then just remember, if you can't control the pace of the round and you can't dictate the pace, because that's a skill that comes over time, it starts with being able to dictate your own pace. That is something you can learn how to do within a few months, is to learn how to govern your own output. So I think that's probably a really important skill. Focus on your breathing fully, focus on using as little muscle as possible, and then learn how to add it in when you need to. Might be the best way to train more frequently, if that seems like a problem. And what you eat when you're hungry, and you rest when you feel overtrained. So it's more of, rest is more of something you do as a result of feeling a certain way. It's not something you can necessarily plan for. There's so much subjectivity, stress outside of the gym, your rest, your diet. There's too many factors, your biology. He asked for tips for beginners. I always say this, it's like, learn the moves that you learn in class, but really focus on the things that apply everywhere. You can always improve your ability to breathe. You tell white belts all the time, dude, you've got to learn how to stop holding your breath. And they're like, I know, it's just hard. It's like, I know it's all hard. That guard pass you learned in class today, that's hard, but you're focusing on that and you're not focusing on your breath. And you always need to control your breath. You only have a couple opportunities to go for that guard pass. This breathing thing, it's more important whether you believe me or not. And like you can always grip fight. You can always, in every position, there's a grip and hand fight battle, head positioning, controlling your opponent's head, weight distribution. I use that rule of there's a communal energy between me and you. It can go three directions. It can go to me, it can go to the mat, and it can go to my opponent. As often as possible, I want it on my opponent unless I have a reason to disengage. So there's just little laws and they sound conceptual, but these are the fundamentals to me, because as a beginner, if you learn how to do these things and you learn these things like escaping with the head on mat principle, the structural alignment idea, these are things that make your game better all over. Learning that one specific guard pass, that one specific sweep, that one specific submission, it is not going to improve your game as drastically as these pieces that work everywhere. So focus on bigger picture stuff would be my main thing. Breathing, hand fighting, weight distribution, base, off balancing. Those are all pretty good core concepts. Bryan?
It's funny because you can kind of, at least I can. There's certain aspects of training jiu-jitsu like that kind of stick out, and certain concepts that I picked up over the past 8 years that once I picked those up, it immediately changed my game. And probably one of the best tips I got was right at the end of blue belt. I had visited the Matt Arroyo's gym down in Tampa, and he basically had talked about what I was doing, because he said he did it too. And that is, as a white belt, especially if you're a competitive white belt, do not go into the gym and just try to train with the higher belts because you think that's the only way you're going to get better. And what I mean by that is I used to just pick up, as a white belt, I would only try to roll with blue belts or higher. And I would basically look at rolling with another white belt as taking a step back from trying to reach another level. The minute he said that, he basically said, you got to not only train with people that are better than you got to train people that are worse than you, because the people that are better than you, you're going to learn how to defend yourself really, really well against them. You're going to start to improve your defense, and it's going to get good. And you're going to learn how to slow down a match. You're going to learn how to slow them down. But to get really good at offense, you got to train with somebody that's at the same level as you or worse than you, because that's when you're going to really start to hone in on how to attack somebody and really start picking people apart. Because the better you get at jiu-jitsu, it's not the one move that finishes everything off for you. It's basically that to progress with the jiu-jitsu, you should basically be learning how to set those moves up by doing other things. And the only way you're going to learn a setup is not by just catching it on a whim with somebody who's a higher belt than you that you're rolling with. It's basically dominating somebody who's not as good as you and figuring out what their reactions are, because we all have very similar reactions when things aren't going the right way in jiu-jitsu, and that's what you take advantage of. You're taking advantage of that. So that's it. My best advice as a new person coming into jiu-jitsu is you got to vary your training partners, and you got to make sure that it's part of an ego thing where, hey, you're not just trying to roll with the guy that's a lot better than you, so that way when you get beat, it makes you feel better. You got to try and roll with the guy that is just starting out 2 to 3 months after you started, that you have a little bit of a leg up on, and start using that leg up to start figuring out how to use your attacks.
Like it. Kevin?
Is it my turn?
Yes.
So, like before, I'd have to know the person a little bit. I don't know if this is along the same lines. What Bryan is saying, I was taught to. You know, I can't remember who said it to me. He's like, you gotta roll with people who are worse than you, the same level as you, and better as you. But I said that to somebody a long time ago, and they said, well, I'm the worst in the gym. So who am I going to roll with worse than me? I was like, man, well, I'm sure a new person will sign up soon. So, but you know, I didn't know how to say, but the thing I see with this question, and I'd have to know the person, but I answer this question with a question now. I don't answer it necessarily with a technical aspect of it. I basically look at the person and I say, are you interested in getting better? Or are you committed to getting better? Because a lot of people want to just get better and they're just interested in it. They're not really committed to it. What are you doing when you walk through that door? What are you working on? Well, I don't know. What did you do in class today? Did you try it when you were rolling? No. What did you do? I kind of just laid there, or I just survived, which is a good thing too. That's kind of how I asked that question. That's a question like I have to kind of know the individual to give them a certain answer. You know what I mean? So I kind of answer that question in that way now. I don't answer it with, you need to do this technique or that, which I'd never probably do that anyway, but that's what I say to them. I'm like, are you committed or are you interested? Do you love it or are you just doing it? You know what I mean? Because, you know, a long time ago, I heard high-level grapplers say, I just love it more. You know what I mean? What are your goals? You know, what are your goals when you walk through the door? Goals can be mechanical. I know that, but you should still have an idea of what you want to do. You know what I mean? And then as soon as you get something, and a lot of times the techniques that'll work for you are the things that you do when you roll, when you're like, ooh, hey man, I hit an arm triangle. I'm going to start messing with that. I remember you doing that, right? Mike, you would say, ooh, I'm getting good at this. And then you started trying it all over the place and got really good at it. You kind of discovered that somebody may have showed you that technique, or you may have saw it, but you kind of did it on your own, right? So as a coach, I don't want to make a blueprint of who I am. I want to just guide you and find out who you are. But the first thing, you got to be committed, you know, and that doesn't mean being in a gym 7 days a week. It just means, what are you doing? Take a little time, have an idea of what you want to do. How many rounds do you want to do tonight? But are you really training? Because I've had people say to me before, I train all the time. I'm like, no, you sit against the wall all the time. You train 3 rounds and you sat against the wall for 5. What are you really doing? So I know people know that about me, and I get messages about the wall sits, but nobody ever got better sitting against the wall. So which one do you want? But like I said, I'd have to know the person, what their background is, what exactly they're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But that's my answer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
I gotta say, just following up, nothing as like, now that I've started coaching and teaching class, nothing drives me more crazy than when you're teaching a technique for the entire class or a certain position. All right. And the minute that class is over, it instead of like starting in the same position you've been working from, even if it's not the technique you've been working on, at least start in the position that you're working from. In that class, follow up the training and follow up what you're learning with that positional stuff. I don't get that. Yeah. Why would you start like, hey, this entire class we're doing half guard, and we're gonna start standing up or on our knees, and I'm gonna try and take you down, and I'm gonna do everything I can to work from me being in top side control. No, like you just did an entire round or an entire class on half guard. Start in half guard. Focus on one thing and go from there. That's the only way you're going to get good at this.
Yeah. It's funny. So there's two other questions we'll cover, and that's probably more than a good enough amount of time. But something funny you brought up, it reminded me, somebody asked about how the sport has changed and how we see the future going. I don't have a whole lot to say on that, but it was funny you mentioned the knee thing. That's one thing we got out of the habit of. When I first started training, it was very normal for guys to literally, both of you start on the knees and wrestle on the knees. So I'm not saying there's no benefit to that, but we at least, if one guy's kind of on the knees, it's much more of a realistic position. The other guy's playing a guard, and you're not on your knees as much as you are maybe playing a pressure position, get your grips. We don't wrestle from the knees anymore. And it just kind of was something that happened over time. And I think that's something that's happened at other gyms more as well. I don't really have much to say on how the sport's changed. There's always fads. You can watch it. You know that there are people out there, obviously leg lock trends have changed. I don't really know how the sport has changed a whole lot, other than there are probably people out there who've developed that maybe, I don't even want to say that that's not something from old. No, I don't really know. So anything you want to say on how the sport's changed since you started and maybe a future sort of perspective? Anybody, Bryan?
No, I mean, it's as simple as anything. The sport's getting better every single day. Like, it's jumping leaps and bounds. I'm not good enough. I'm a fucking 39-year-old brown belt that doesn't know shit. I have no idea what's happening in the future. Like, there's so many things that this sport is so limitless, and that's just the fun part of it. Enjoy it. Who the hell cares where it's going to go? Just grab a hold of it and run with it.
Yeah. Kevin?
I can actually talk about this one. So the biggest thing that I've seen in the time I've been in jiu-jitsu, for one, cross training is a lot more common now. It wasn't actually, even when I started, it wasn't that common. You kind of just didn't do it. You should do it, I think.
Yeah.
The other thing that I see is when I go to a tournament and I look at the blue belts rolling, they know a lot more than what I knew at blue belt 14 years ago. Because you can get stuff right on. I mean, I didn't even have a cell phone when I started. I'm dating myself a little bit, but you can get stuff right to your cell phone from a world champion. And I walk past the blue belts now and I'm like, whew, I didn't know that shit when I was there. I know I didn't. And you see them doing it. So information's more prevalent. There's more schools. And like Bryan said, it's just gotten better, and that doesn't mean that you can't get better. I don't want that to sound like that, because that's not true, but we can all get better. It's scientifically proven, but I think people get better faster like that. There's that young kid that just, I think he just got his purple belt and he won the trials. That's amazing. I think the first Abu Dhabi I saw, there was no ADC trials and there was nowhere near the amount of competitors that are in it now. I mean, I think there was almost 200 people in a couple of divisions. That's unreal. You know what I mean? It didn't used to be like that. And I think the days of guys in their late 30s winning the Abu Dhabi trials and stuff, that's probably done, in my opinion. It's too popular. There's too many people that know about it. And that's the biggest thing I've seen. But lower young guys and girls. The other thing, that's another thing. The girls' side of it, the women's side, is blown up. I remember going to Naga Worlds, the first one I was talking about, and the women's division was over quick because there was only probably 12 women there. Now you go and there's a lot more. I mean, it's still smaller, but it's definitely, I've seen that blow up too. So those two things probably are the most.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely a lot of higher ranked guys at every school too. I mean, they're people, so many higher colored belts, so many more purple, brown, and black all across the board.
Absolutely.
So the last question, and I'm going to change this a little bit because I don't want it to be specific to me. I got asked by somebody that I don't know very well. They had mentioned that that they only know me through Instagram. They've seen me one time at a competition, but they don't know me well. And they wanted to know what it was like training with the psychedelic athlete. So I thought maybe a fun way to close would be to add a little insight for those of you who don't know, you only see us in the pictures, what it's like training with the other people. So I'll go ahead and I'll just give you a quick little rundown of what it's like rolling with Bryan and Kevin, kind of what I've learned over the years from them, and just kind of give you a little day in the life of our regular. So Bryan is undoubtedly just one of the most driven, but not in an ego way, but just very driven to get to where he's going, to keep trying for that pass. You cannot break his will. We joke and say it's a redheaded thing, but he definitely serves the stereotype well as far as that goes. I don't know, there is a tenacity about him. I remember when we first started 5 a.m., we were always starting on the feet. Me and Kevin get a little warm up round in usually. Bryan is just shot out of a damn cannon. I used to tell people, it's like, it took some adjusting. Like, good Lord, you're really in like a fight at like 5:05. Like Bryan would roll in, 5:02, and at 5:04, he's having a wrestling match that is just, I'm going to put you on your damn back, motherfucker, like coming at you. And if you get your takedown, what I love about Bryan is we've had a lot of streaks back and forth. See, like I'll get mine on Bryan for a week or two. Maybe I'll catch him in some submissions. Maybe I'll get mine on him. And then he comes back and he schools me for a few weeks and he catches me a bunch. We've always kind of been back and forth with momentum more than anybody else I've ever rolled, as far as who's kind of dictating, who's in control. And sometimes it balances out, but that kind of, we're all pretty fun. We have fundamental, like, good base, good pressure when we want to, that sort of thing. But Bryan's tenacity and that just nonstop kind of methodical pace is very unique. And Kevin, early on, it's just like, you really can't fathom. You talk a lot of shit. That's one thing to note. But you really can't fathom ever being good enough to beat you, because you're not doing anything that looks overly athletic. You're just kind of, how to like sit on somebody and put your arm and your hip in a way where the person just cannot move. It's very uniquely demoralizing. Like, there might be somebody out there that can give you a run for their money that will make beating me look harder. Like, you make it look easy and you really chill. Like, you could sit there, you can talk, you can do whatever while you beat somebody that's pretty damn good. You could take a good purple belt. And that, it's funny because we have these conversations and I'll tell you, I think somebody's good. Somebody gives me a run and you're able to dictate what happens so well that you're like, really? They give you a problem? You're always telling me that I give you more of a problem than people that I tell you give me problems, because I just go at the pace of other people. Well, you and I are both static grapplers. We hang out in a position and really do a lot of little things and slowly work our angles. So I've kind of learned that game. But when I'm going against people that I just play second fiddle to their pacing and try to counter them, you don't allow them to do that. So you are like me, but you're not as much of a counter guy. You more so dictate and control the pace. You're a bit more of a positional person versus a just straight up submission hunter. Like I have been more so over the years. But I'll tell you what's funny is we all have our specific submissions. Like, I have the arm triangle, Bryan has the guillotine, and Kevin has the Kimura. And we have those three submissions, and we have a very positional game that seems to funnel into those submissions very well. It's so funny. It just switched to Bryan's camera on there. Yeah, he's probably taking a piss somewhere. Oh, because his microphone's moving. That's
no, I'm trying to plug my damn earpiece in.
Oh, I got you. Oh, so yeah, that kind of sums up what it's like to train with them. And what's funny is you don't understand I developed my game by not being able to do my game to these guys who know my game very well. So the fact that I can't arm triangle you guys, I don't hit it on Bryan anymore. The fact that like I'm able to defend maybe even Bryan's guillotine better and better. It's like, it's actually the inability to pass Kevin's guard and the inability to do things that sort of makes me makes me better. It's not even my ability to get the finishes. It's my inability to do it against you guys that improves it against other people. So I guess that's what I have to say. What do you think it's like training with us? Bryan, are you there, by the way?
Hold up, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Man
Yeah,
down.
we'll let
Man
Kevin.
down.
We'll let Kevin go and then bring it back to you, Bryan, if that works. Or actually, you're here. Do you want? It doesn't matter who goes next. I don't care.
Oh,
I'll
what
go
is it?
next.
So
Okay, you go ahead.
no, it's all you.
All right, Kev.
I'll never
Want me to
step
go
on
next?
the big dog's toes. Hell yeah.
No, you go ahead. It's just my wife and daughter. My daughter's probably going to barge in on us. You go ahead first.
All right, cool.
Oh, I got you. What is it like training with the psychedelic athlete?
And Kevin too, yeah. But
Oh, and Kevin?
yeah, just do both of us.
Okay, well, I mean, Turp, man, it's the psychedelic athlete he is absolutely the last person I want to be under on this planet. This dude your pressure is insane. Just the fact of how you freaking contort and twist things. And the worst part is like, I am so against tapping to things like pressure passes and pressure submissions. He loves them. He is absolutely phenomenal at them. He's getting big heavyweights with them in competition. And there's times where I'll be sitting there letting him just crank away at a scarf choke. And I'm basically like doing every single thing in my willpower to like not tap to it. It's just your use of weight and your use of your balance is just phenomenal. So that's all I can basically say is the way that he has you've adapted your game to basically keep that top pressure is just insane. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with just your build and how you are. But again, just your full awareness of where you position yourself is just another level. And Kevin, training with him it's like training with a post is really the best way I could describe it. Anytime you try to take him down, it's like running into a freaking rooted tree, and you're trying to take down a rooted tree. Anytime he gets on top of you, it's like a freaking anvil's crushing whatever spot it is. Anytime you think like you can settle in a top position with him, he basically feels like you roll over and you're basically going ass over tea kettle with you. You're like rolling with a freaking tree trunk. It's just as simple as that. But yeah, that's what I got.
Kevin,
My turn now. I
Yes.
appreciate both of you guys for that. So I'm gonna start with you, Bryan. So 100%, I agree with you, Turp. When Bryan would come in at 5:04, and all I saw was this red fireball coming across the room, I was like, "Oh my god, how does he go that fucking fast? He doesn't even warm up. He's just like, I'm ready. Let's go." I'm like, "Fuck, is he really going that hard already?" I'm like, I need to warm up more. And I've kind of gotten like where I'm just mentally prepared for that. But 100% with Bryan, when he first started doing that, I was like, shit.
hey, one
You know
second.
what I mean?
Well, I got to say
Yeah.
this. I used to imagine that Bryan is on his way to the gym, giving himself a pep talk. He has that long drive from you're going to kill these. Today's your day. You're going to show them what the fuck. I used to imagine him doing that on the way to the gym.
Yeah.
The best part is I'll be driving in and all I'm doing is I'm listening to like a history podcast.
That makes it even, but yeah, 100%. He would come in and it was just balls to the walls right away. I'm like, even when it was freezing, like it was 32 degrees in the gym one day, he comes in 100 miles an hour. I'm like, holy shit, how does he do that? And I'm like, if I don't warm up right, I start gassing out. I'm like, oh my God, how's he go so fast? And then he's obviously lighter than me by a little bit, like 10 pounds or so. But anyway, and I'm like, he just don't stop. He keeps coming. I'm like, Bryan, you got unbelievable relentlessness. It's like nonstop. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to hold him here for a minute. And he's just moving around and he doesn't stop moving. I'm like, fuck, this is killing me. But it's great. I need that. And it was great. But I totally agree with that, Turp. It was like, I used to tell everybody, man, you come in here at 5 o'clock in the morning, all you see is this red streak going back and forth. That's Bryan running around. I was thinking about doing a memes with like the Flash moving around. That's Bryan moving all over the place. Now with Turp or the psychedelic athlete, it's a party every time. Just letting everybody out there know. But anyway.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
The thing with Mike, you're so creative with your submissions, especially your arm triangle. Because there's been times when I'm like, yeah, I'm passing. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm kind of, he can't finish that. There's no way. And then you're like, fuck, I'm starting to fucking pass out. He's got it. And so when you did the choke from the guard, I wasn't really surprised. You know what I mean? Because you're just, the other day you were like, you didn't get me with it that time, but you were like pulling my foot. And I'm like, the fuck is he doing back there? You know what I mean? And you'll figure out a way to make the submission work in an unconventional way. I would say that's one of your best attributes.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you actually practice that, but you come up with these like as soon as you learn others, like your pressure stuff Bryan's talking about, you'll do it in a different way that's not conventional. You know what I mean? And you'll get it. And you're like, oh shit, how did he do that? Like your arm triangle. Like I've hit one arm triangle in competition from the bottom. Turp, you do it like it's nothing all the time. I see you doing it. I'm like, how the fuck does he do that? You know what I mean? but I think your creativity in your grappling game is great. That's something I have it a little bit, but I don't have it like you have it. You have unbelievable creativity with your game. And it's like you posted one time, my number one takedown is falling down, and like you'll fall on your ass, and next thing I know, you're taking the guy down. I'm like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? I'm like, and I see that with your arm triangle and all the different things you do. And both of you have done great. I think I've known you since the day you started, and you guys do a great job. And, everybody that comes through that door, I think one day is going to be my training partner. And you guys have become great training partners. That's, I want to surround myself with people like that want to train hard. Not just train hard, because training hard is part of it. And a lot of people train hard, but we need to train to where we get better. And I totally see that. But yeah, so with Bryan, it's his tenacity. Turp, it's your creativity. Your creativity is awesome. And Bryan is like this fucking red streak. I'm like, God damn, I'm dying here.
Yeah.
But that's what
the psychedelic athlete has put me asleep more than anybody else over my career in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, man, let's make sure that's the next piece. Add that into there, because to that creativity point, there's been positions that he's put me in. I'm like, he's definitely not going to get this. And the next thing you know, it's hey man, you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. What the? Oh, fuck, I went to sleep again. God damn it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's more often with him. I've been put to sleep by like maybe one other person. No, definitely one other person for sure put me out. The psychedelic athletes put me out a lot. And it's all because I've been sitting there. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be going out to this. This is perfectly. What the fuck just happened? Where'd I come from? Where'd I go?
Awesome.
I've I'll be passing, and I'm like, there's no way you can get an arm triangle from right there. And I'm like, ooh, I'm starting to see a tunnel. He's got that. Oh, I better tap.
Yeah.
That's your creativity is off the charts. It's very good.
If we had
That's
to pinpoint it to one word, Kevin, you definitely would be alpha then. There's creativity, there's tenacity, and there's just alpha. Like I think so. I think even if somebody got the best of you, I just think they would feel like somehow you were still dominating the energy of side. You always have that act of like, it's not a front. It's just, you're the alpha of most dynamics. You just are. I don't know. It might be a little, you're older, you're tough, you're hard-nosed, gritty, and I'm not sure what it is, but I think that's something anybody can pick up on. What's cool is it's fun, getting you guys out to different mats too, and being able to just see you roll other people and be like, hey, what'd you think of that guy? I love inviting, because I invite so many people in from other gyms. I go to other gyms. I'm always like, man, what'd you think of rolling with Bryan? What'd you think of rolling with Kevin? I love, like, when we went to the one open mat together. I brought Bryan up to York. Kevin went with me to Delaware, some other gyms. So it's just cool being able to show off these guys that maybe people have seen in the photos, and they get to find out who that training core is, because they all know me because I've traveled to a lot of these gyms. But when they come to the gym and they get to, and there are other people from a gym, I always love knowing what people think of Tyler Hyub, of Vegan Mike. And there's people I love asking, Louis one, Louis we train with, he's not method, but I love, like, what the fuck do you think of Louis, dude? Like, I love asking people, but us three, I think it's like a really fun, we're fun people to take to other mats. We're respectful enough. We're usually well perceived. And we don't hurt anybody, but there is like you went with something. So that unifies us for sure. Go ahead.
Best. Let's not forget about, like, when we're talking about Kevin with his alpha, the freaking UFC fighter who will not be named, who taught a leg lock seminar and then rolls with Kevin afterwards. And he's a big guy. He's a heavyweight. And then immediately rolls with Kevin after the seminar and turns and looks at the gym owner, Eddie, and is like, who the hell is that guy?
Yep.
after getting steamrolled by the freaking post, he goes, who the hell was that?
That I remember. I was a little pissed off. I don't get pissed off a lot, but every once in a while, I was a little pissed off there. But
yeah,
I was like, all right, that's one of my I have different goals, and one of my goals is, like, I'm going to be that old, kind of like a Mike Atkin guy, be in the corner and just minding my own business. And then you roll with me. I want to hear them say, and I've done it about 3 times. I've heard people say, who in the hell is that guy? And I just walk away. That's one of my, like, jiu-jitsu lifetime goals, to just be able to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I do it sometimes I don't, but the instance Bryan saw, I did it that time. I know I did. I was
remember. I was there. Awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. I think that's more, real quick, just to throw it out there. I mean, people who find this different places, it's in the show notes and stuff. Just say your Instagram handle while I have you guys on here. I know Kev, you guys say what it is. Bryan.
It's just my last name, first name, Wunder Bryan, WUNDER BRYAN. Don't follow me.
You're gonna see the same pictures over and over.
It's exactly right. Don't follow me. There's no fucking point.
My Instagram is GrapplerKJB1178. I have a Facebook too, but you can look me up. I'm hardly ever on it. I have a timer and I'm not on my Facebook. I got tired of all the political and bull crap on there.
Yep.
So 78.
What's that?
I said 78.
I thought about taking that out of there. I was like, I'm gonna have to change this.
Yeah, but hey,
but next time we'll have to do it again, man. We'll have to do this again.
I'll tell you a real quick perspective that was crazy. We're talking about age, all this. I mean, for a while, you were the person I would point at and say, you can be a bad motherfucker when you're a little older. Hanging around Mike Atkin, 67 years old. I mean, he is older than you as long as you've been training. So if you started now, you could have the length of career that you've had and wind up, just being Mike Atkins' age. That really puts it into perspective. So that's a guy I got to get on the podcast. I think for like the weeks leading up, what's this thing again we're doing? What's a podcast? You got to explain it to me again. What am I doing?
Yo, for those who don't know, back to like what we started with, that motherfucker at 67 years old is coming off double knee replacement and is back on the mats already, freaking crushing people.
Killer.
Yep.
He's a killer.
Yeah, he's a tough role. And like I said in that post, I'm not just saying that to say that. He's a legitimate tough role. You know what I mean? It's like, God, this freaking guy.
I remember the first time I had like a tough role with him, and I'm like, I'm gonna try this, and I'm gonna basically start, and he got on top, and then he basically proceeded to pass and went old school wrestling fucking oil check style. I had 3 fingers up my ass as this old man ran past my guard and hooked this shit out of me and crushed me. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
I got crushed and violated all at the same time.
I
Oh,
remember
God.
the first time I rolled with him. When I was rolling with him, I had him in like the shoulder crunch position, and he looked at me and goes, "You're not going to submit me with. I've never been submitted with that, and you're not ever going to submit me with it." And I said, "Well, I'm not really trying to submit you. I'm trying to sweep you." He goes, "You're not going to do that either." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Okay."
God, Mike Atkins, this shit.
He
Yeah, I
is.
was like, "Okay."
All right. Well, on that note, thank you guys for being on. I'm going to end this recording in 3.
Thank you.
See you guys.